Welcome to El Paso Knives. With spring and camping around the corner, I have a cool knife project that you can do with your kids, where we take a $3 Old Hickory paring knife and we modify it into a great small camp knife. Today I've got a neat little project that you can do with your kids, especially with spring and camping around the corner. We know kids tend to get all excited and ready for camping. The big question you have as a parent is, do I allow them to have a knife? Well, I can't tell you what to do there, but what I can show you is a neat little project that you can do with them should you decide that they're old enough to carry a knife, where we take an Old Hickory paring knife and modify it into an awesome small camp knife. I paid $3 for this Old Hickory paring knife that's a factory second. $3 was a pretty good price. In fact, I think it was like $2.98, and with taxes, a little over $3. Brand new, you'll find these on Amazon for approximately $12. If you're interested in the model number, it's on the safety sleeve that comes on the blade, and it's model OH753X. General specs on the knife is you've got a high carbon steel blade that's should be made out of 1070 carbon steel. You've got a blade length that is just shy of 3.5 inches with an overall length of 6 3/4 inches. Now, because it is a paring knife, it is not a full tang. So what does that mean? That means that the spine of the blade isn't all the way through the handle. It's basically halfway through. So it's known as either a half tang or a partial tang. And you can see the tang both underneath the handle as well as above. Because the knife is half tang, this is not going to be a knife, especially with the specifications. You're not going to use this knife for chopping or any type of hard lateral prying use that you might do with like either a survival knife, bushcraft knife, or some type of general utility knife that's going to be built a lot more robust and is going to have a full tang on it. So this is a small, light use, light utility knife that can be used in the field or while camping. So we're going to do 3 modifications to this knife. The first modification we're going to do is to the blade. I'm going to take an angle grinder and I'm going to put a clip point on this to give it more of a buoy look to it. The second modification we're going to do is with the handle scale. Essentially put some textured grooving into the scales so that you've got a better grip and better retention so that your hand doesn't slide down. And then the third mod that we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole at the top of the handle so that we've got a lanyard that also gives us good control, allows us to safely handle the knife during intricate tasks. And then the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you some simple tips on how to make a very simple sheath so that this can be carried on your camping trip. Okay, well, let's go do the first modification, and that's going to be grinding a clip point onto our blade tip. So we've completed our clip point on this knife, and in the absence of an angle grinder, you could use, for example, a half round file and just gently work your way, filing it down. If you don't have an angle grinder, a file will work just fine. And with the angle grinder, we didn't have to worry too much about heat buildup. I was doing very light touches. But if you feel like you're going to overheat your blade, you can certainly have some water on hand and you can dunk it to keep the blade cool. But in this case, we did not overheat the blade. You can see there's no color change whatsoever. And, the clip point just gives it a cool, bowie look to it, and also gives you a finer tip so that you can do more detailed work like notches or getting into tight little spaces. Our second modification is going to consist of putting in grooves into our scales for control and handling. So if you don't have a Dremel, you can use a small round file such as this one. Just find a spot on the scale and just run your file. You run it back and forth and just notch it out until you're happy with the texture and the look. So for speed's sake, I'm going to use a Dremel tool here, and I've got a small round wooden filing tip on it. We've completed one side of our scales. You can see the texture on the scales. Definitely going to provide an improved grip. Once I finish this side, I'm just going to take some light sandpaper and just sand off any rough edges. And then I'm going to proceed with repeating this process on the other side. Alright, you can already see the difference between the original profile of this paring knife and how it looks now. The next mod we're going to make is we're going to drill a hole in the back of our handle for a lanyard. Now that we've put in our lanyard hole, I'm going to sand it down once again. So I used a drill press using a 1/4 inch drill bit to get this hole in there for a lanyard. If you don't have a drill press, just very carefully use a 1/4 inch drill bit. So what I like to do once I've finished those modifications is I'll take some boiled linseed oil on a cloth and I'll apply it to our scales. Okay, now that I've applied some boiled linseed oil, let's go ahead and dress it up and put our lanyard on. And I've just got just a piece of leather lacing here, and you can use paracord if that's all you have, or some other type of cord of your choice. And I just put a small length, tie a knot, and there's our lanyard. Well, you can't have a knife without having a sheath. So to make a simple sheath for this knife, I've found some scrap leather that I had laying around, and I've pre-trimmed this into this shape here. Okay, and you can use leather if you have it, or if you have perhaps an old, purse that maybe mom has laying around that's made out of leather, or some other type of fabric that's perhaps a sturdy canvas. What I've also done is I've put some very basic holes along the edge so that we can put it all together. Now you can either hand stitch this if you like. You can use sinew, you can use upholstery, threading. What I'm going to use here is just some basic cordage that I have. And the first thing I want to do before I close it up is I want to be able to secure the belt loop, stitch up the belt loop. So I'm just going to take my cordage and I put 2 holes. That way we can just do a simple design. And I'm running this through the holes twice. Just like that. I'm going to take my other end, make sure it goes through in there as well. Okay, so I've got one loop here, and you can see where the 2 ends went through on the inside of our sheath. And I'm just going to trim it. I'm going to use my knife. Okay, once you do that, just tie a simple little knot. nice and tight. So now we're going to stitch up our sheath now that our belt loop is secured. And I'm going to start here at the bottom. I'm going to feed my lace through. And I'm just going to tie a knot. It's nothing more than like a little granny knot. And then I'm just going to feed it underneath through the next hole and just lace it going from underneath. Just doing over and under. We have 2 more holes to go through. Let me go feed it to the last one. Pull everything tight. Go all the way from the beginning of where you started and just pull any slack. Once you pull the slack, you'll end up with a length at the top. And here you can just tie a knot, a big old knot, so that it doesn't go through our hole. And the side of our sheath is secured so that we can place the knife in it. All right. So there's our knot. And there we go. We've got a homemade, handcrafted leather sheath. We can now put this on our hip, on a belt, and our knife is comfortably in there. It's a little loose, but it's also not a highly customized leather sheath either. It's just a nice basic native style sheath that holds our blade and allows us to access it when we need it. And here's our finished project.
Coffee's ready if you'll have some. Breakfast should be finished soon. The paper called for sun tomorrow.
Well, I hope you like today's project and it inspires you to go out and tinker around with a knife, whether it's for yourself or for your kids as a project. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and consider joining my channel as a member. And as always, thank you for watching. Keep your hands busy and your knives sharp.